Well, good morning. Thank you, Jane, for joining us. I know that this is not your first time up here. We've done this before, so excited and so glad and looking forward to have our conversations.
Thank you so much for having me today. I love coming here. Those steps are a little challenging, but we make it. Some people here may not know I lost my eyesight about 12 years ago, but you are all beautiful, I can tell you that. So I'm very glad to be here. And I don't know, Masood's got questions, but I just wanted to say a little bit more about how much I love this church. I've been around Columbia since, well, before most of you were born. I turned 70 last year. And I came here as a 17-year-old from a zoo. So I've seen a lot. I helped to plant another church during the charismatic movement. I've been very involved in wanting to see churches come together in unity. And I can walk into any church and fall in love and say that every church does at least 2 or 3 things super well. I will have to say, I don't think I've been in better worship than what we just had. Could we give a round of applause to that worship team? That was incredible. I felt like we were ushered into the heavenlies, and I guess you get that every week. Pretty amazing. But my journey, even with Woodcrest, we started our organization in 2008. It was Love Inc. at the time, and Woodcrest was an initial partner with us. So I got to come here. I got to go up those steps when I could see. I got to talk to people here, get involved, met Pat and Lori Kincannon in a ministry fair in the lobby, and they got involved right almost from pretty close to the beginning, and have been very involved. Sherry Neff, got to see her start the Dollar Club and so many other things here. You know, Woodcrest has been such a significant church in the community, and it still is. I think even some of how Love Columbia has transformed through the years has reflected some of the heart and the history of Woodcrest. And Love Columbia, we focus on, isn't that great? I think it is great. I mean, things you're known for, you know, welcoming anybody, people that weren't believers. I remember one of your former leaders a long time ago said, we just want to be the gateway to Christianity for people. And you sang songs that sometimes weren't quite hymns, and you offered coffee before anybody was offering coffee. And you started recovery groups before anybody was offering recovery groups. And you forged a path for many others to follow. And even with Love Inc., now Love Columbia, we embrace people that also are not Christians to work alongside us. And sometimes they come to faith, and sometimes they just inspire our faith more. But as I was thinking about some of the things that I've been trying to listen to some of your Sunday services, just so I wouldn't be stepping in with no context. I am going to let you ask me a question at some point.
That's all right.
Sorry, Masood. But where was I? Oh, yeah, I was listening to some of your sermons. I mean, Matt Gordon. I love Matt Gordon. Matt Gordon, are you here? Okay. Is he here? Okay, I hope he's waving at me. But Matt got to stand up with me in 2016 at a very pivotal moment when we had 4 years in a row before the pandemic set of linking for love. Remember what we said that first year, if Matt's here? G.K. Chesterton, the purpose of organized religion is to let good things run wild. Well, there was no better co-MC than Matt for that theme. And as you all know, he's a fast talker. He says a lot. You're trying to keep up with him. But as I was listening to some of his sermons, and how special is it to go through the book of Acts? And what a time to go through it when you're going through your own transitions. Let's just go back to what the church is, what the church does. So I loved so many things Matt says, but do you remember him saying, let's go involves letting go? I don't know if you heard that, but you know, that's super important, isn't it, at a time like this? And I thought it was so brave of you to have Brock Bondurant. I listened to his sermon. Gosh, that guy got to talk about praying in tongues up here. So anything I say is going to feel really tame. But it was important, wasn't it? And even when we started Love Inc. at the time, I remember in 2001, I was so desperate. I think this is answering your first question about how we get started. Okay. Just how do you get the church involved? But first, I got to go back to the sermons. Put a pin in that and ask me that question. Okay, so I loved all the things Matt said, Brock. I'm sure the other speakers, I didn't get to hear them all. But I thought the most prophetic thing I heard was Masood's cat joke. Did anybody hear his cat joke last week? Where the pastor and his family, the kids wanted a cat. He invested in a cat. They're taking care of this cat. The cat climbs a tree to get it down. They try to pull the branch down, which sends the cat flying, who knows where. It lands in the lap of a little girl who's been praying for a cat. And so the pastor's visiting the family, and the mother is saying, "You're not going to believe what happened. God miraculously answers prayer." But I just thought, is that the story of Woodcrest and every other church, really? You invest, you invest, you invest, and then that thing that you've invested in goes flying across town and lands in somewhere else, and it's the answer to somebody's prayer. And then you don't find out about it for years to come. Well, there's a lot of people that have been through this building that are the answers to prayer somewhere else. And that is painful, because I think those kids probably missed that cat and they'd invested in that cat. But sometimes that's just how God works, because he lets good things run wild. And he doesn't really care so much about our comfort. And as I have gone through this whole thing with blindness, I wanted to be sure I shared that the night before my eye surgery that ended up failing in December of 2010, some of you may have heard me share this, I was praying and I just told the Lord, I felt like I was running off a cliff. I was just headed toward running off a cliff. And immediately I heard him say, which I can tell you that because you've already heard Matt or Bondurant talk about praying in tongues, but God does talk to you, doesn't he? Those God winks, and you all have talked here about God winks. I heard him say, no, you're not running off a cliff, you're speeding up to fly. And I would like to say that is exactly what happened in my life. Love Inc., Love Columbia went from this big to this big with a blind lady. And I also know that God's just really good at reframing things. As I was bemoaning the whole situation, I felt God spoke to me, just see this season as me walking you blindfolded to a big surprise party. But isn't that where we're all going? We really can't see very far ahead, and he's walking us to a big surprise party. So I also wanted to share too, I feel like I'm a dot connector, so maybe I'm gonna connect some dots, but all I see are dots. These little tiny varying colored gray dots that are moving like something under a microscope, kind of jiggling dots. And I was thinking about that one day when we were singing that worship song about darkness trembling in the name of Jesus. Well, that's all he's letting me see. The darkness is trembling, you all. It's trembling all the time because the name of Jesus is above every name, and his church will not fail. And you're part of that. So, we are at a good place. I said Tyrese, I got to meet Tyrese. I've heard so much about him. And he said, I'm always this transition guy. And I said, well, thresholds. I did a Bible study once of what happens on thresholds. You should look that up sometime. The doorposts shake sometimes. All kinds of things, startling things happen on thresholds. And you're at a threshold here at Woodcrest right now. And a big burden is about to be lifted off of you. Think about how you're gonna fly with the burden lifted off. You wouldn't think going blind lifts a burden, but nobody asked me to come clean their house for them anymore. There are some burdens. You're not maybe gonna have to do a lot of the things you've had to do, but it gives you more time to do something else. I was talking to someone last night who was so sad because their grandchildren are gonna be out of the country for a year, maybe longer. I said, well, it is gonna give you more time for other stuff. And God is always rearranging our time. He does not want to waste our time. And there are certain things he probably just would prefer we didn't spend time on to make room for something else. So I am super excited for what you all are going to have more time to spend on going forward and what God is doing here. I also wanted to mention a picture God gave me about bellows one time, that we, the church, us, individually, all of us are bellows in his hand. And you know the bellows go out and in, and it's blowing over some fire, usually to get the embers burning. Well, think of it as we're the bellows. Sometimes we're expanded, sometimes we're contracted. We don't like that part, do we? But it's all necessary for that movement to blow his breath across the earth. And what's he blowing over? The embers of cold hearts that are just barely have a spark. The embers of what's going to spring into revival. I'm still counting on revival. And I told the Lord I'm not leaving until I see it. And I think, so it's coming. It's coming. You are being positioned for things you don't even know and you can't even imagine. If somebody would have told me when I lost my sight that we were going to move from this little 4,000 square foot building across from Cosmos Park that had a leaky roof and flooded and a gravel driveway that was a mess into a $3 million paid for building downtown to be the hub of what's going on, with serving people, I couldn't have imagined. But we just don't know what he's going to do after some of the limitations set in. Closed doors form hallways, and we need hallways because we get distracted. So I'm just here to say I'm living proof of limitations and things shrinking down and how it doesn't always look good, but it's exactly part of God's strategy. So I would say you all are sitting pretty right now for what God's about to do, and I know he's already put things in your heart. And then there's also the fact that sometimes you got a lot of good ideas and you've had good ideas that maybe you got to do once and then the season ended. Anybody ever notice we still have 4 seasons around here? And there's always seasons. And so sometimes you just don't get to do the same thing forever because it turns into fall. And so I, just in my own life, there's things, my husband and I were the college ministers at our church years ago. Our church doesn't even really have a significant college ministry now. But I guess I'm still busy. I'm doing something else, So things change. We just have to accept that God is the good shepherd, always moving us on to greener pastures. And we are mostly going kicking and screaming. But he will have his way. Has anybody ever noticed that? He will have his way, and he's having his way with us. So I know you've had some great ideas here that I've loved. I remember the summer daycare you did for kids between the end of summer school and fall. That was an incredible idea. And how many years did you do that? A lot of years. But I don't know that you're still doing it, but maybe you will again, or maybe somebody else has picked it up. So many things work like that. And even at Love Columbia, maybe I'm a little ADHD, I don't know, but it's a shiny new thing to do. And but one of the, oh dear, you want to ask me the question about
No, you're doing.
Do you want to ask me the question?
Really
I know
well.
he has a question about challenges we're facing. Let me tell you about that one.
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell. Okay.
And part of my question was going to be really, the challenges that you see throughout the years, especially in our community and their needs when it came to post-COVID.
Yes.
Do you see anything different, or do you see any new challenges?
Definitely, and maybe
whatever that you like to talk.
Okay, whatever I want to talk. And we have these posters we did for a 15th anniversary party that kind of show how we've had to morph through the years and add things based on the societal trends, I guess. So you got a big foyer. Could I bring them here some Sunday? I could put them up. Maybe you could just look at them.
Yes.
But yes. So you pick up the phone, you start listening to your neighbors, and then you have 25 people telling you the same thing, and then you have 4 or 5 volunteers that want to do the same thing walk in, and you think, okay, I think God's telling us something. So we basically just try to match what those needs are with what people in the community want to do. And that kind of goes back to why we started the organization in the beginning, which I think I've shared here before, is that I wanted to find a way for the church to relationally connect with people. Now, don't get me wrong, somebody needs to pass out cans of corn and backpacks. But I think the work that I felt called to do, and we do some of that, is to find a way to have relational connection. And I love what you said here about community. You have beaten that drum here at Woodcrest forever. And that is really the key. The biggest poverty is relational poverty. When we started picking up the phone, 1 out of 4 people said they had 0 support persons in their life. And I think even more recently, there's been studies by a Harvard economist named Raj Chetty. Look him up, it's really interesting. He crossed IRS and census data to see how people born in poverty are escaping poverty. You know what the #1 and really only successful strategy he's seen over time? It's having people have relationships cross-class. In communities where rich and poor people mingle together, where you get to experience things you've not experienced, that is just so helpful. So you may not, it started out in the very beginning when I had a lady that was no longer able to make beds at a hotel because she hurt her back, but she didn't know any other jobs because her entire network of people were all hotel housekeepers. Well, she just needed to meet somebody who did something else, and then have them sit with her or let them see job shadow or whatever. So that's something that we think is really important, and we try to do with what Pat Concanon's been doing for years with the Extra Mile Financial Coaching, is just sitting with people. And Pat got so hooked on that, but between doing that and going down to the prison, that I think most of his friends are people that he wasn't even acquainted with at all how many years ago when he started. I mean, he's completely shifted in who he spends a lot of time with, but how many people has Pat Concanon inspired to be successful and responsible? Just last week, we had a group of volunteers talking about their Monday night experience going over to Into Action. We teach financial coaching over there, and it's kind of a little cohort of successful men in town who go over there, and the guys are they're talking about credit scores over their cereal bowl in the morning now. And they're buying cars, they're moving out, they're saying they have aspirations. It's because they got connected. Well, that's what we saw in the beginning, was that people needed that connection to be motivated to go on. And that is something that you all do really well. So there are many, many challenges in Columbia. In 2008, when we started, it was the economy tanked and we had double-digit unemployment. So we did a lot of career coaching, financial coaching, but career coaching. And then, but by 2015, we started seeing housing. Housing was starting to get to be a problem, believe it or not. We saw it in 2015 when families with kids were tumbling into homelessness and they were priced out of their housing. By the way, 27% of Boone Countyans pay over 50% of their income in rent. Let that sink in. 27% of Boone Countyans pay over 50% of their income in rent. And so that's a lot of the people that are calling us. They've been priced out of their housing. And we started seeing it way back in 2015 when a single mom with a bunch of kids just couldn't get the money needed. But now what we used to pay for a 4-bedroom apartment is the charge for a single bedroom in Columbia, because that's how much rent has gone up. So yes, so a lot of what we've done starting since 2015 was transitional housing for families with kids, and then adding housing counseling, and we're kind of doing everything on the housing spectrum now, from helping unhoused people find housing to first-time home buyers. And then last week we added a home maintenance class and a simple estate planning class, because we really want that whole spectrum. Anybody we can help buy a first-time home and move out of a rental property is going to free up a rental for somebody else. So it just kind of goes along with that lines. We also have an affordable housing coalition. It meets on the third Tuesday at 3. That's 3 T's. We tried to alliterate. And that's people that are from all across the community who come to try to brainstorm about how we can add more housing. And really, I would have to say, Woodcrest was, again, kind of ahead of the game a long time ago in just inviting everybody in. And that's what we found is most effective. You know, you can't, it doesn't really help if just all the same siloed group is there talking. We need the home builders, we need the city, we need the county, we need the social service people, we need some of the stakeholders who are being priced out. We need everybody in the room so that we can talk and hear what needs to happen. Yes, please applaud, because it's hard to get all those people in the room. And sometimes the tension. You asked me to raise the temperature in the room. Well, I'll tell you, come to the Affordable Housing Coalition. The temperature gets raised a little bit because so many things have counter ripple effects. Yes, we need clean air, but the builders would say, how much does it cost to add that solar-ready and how much is this to the new house? It might add $8,000. So, you know, there's 2 sides, 3 sides to every story and lots of compromises that need to happen. But it was an attitude, I think, that if I learned it anywhere, I learned it here, of just the need to bring everybody to the table. And so I think you're good at that, and you're even good at that, you know, even in this very building. You've brought a lot of people to the table. So yesterday we had a how to ADU workshop, accessory dwelling unit, build a little granny flat, mother-in-law quarter, either detached or, we had the packed room. I was so excited because we're just trying to come up with various ideas that just, even if you can just do one thing to provide housing for one person, that will help. But kind of back to the old idea of we don't have to do it all. The Affordable Housing Coalition, we're brainstorming all these ideas. I'm thinking, okay, we've got all these seniors that probably have extra bedrooms. Maybe if they shared a bedroom, we could, you know, help address some of the need for housing. But so I'm looking up, you know, how do I do this? There's an association for shared housing. We bought their $100 manual. They want you to hire a consultant to study the demographics in your city for $25,000. I'm like, I can't do this. This is like, and I'm just bemoaning this whole thing, but also knowing this could be something really important in a college town, especially for young people matching in with seniors. And then one of our staff goes to that startup weekend that I think Columbia College and Equipment Share have, and the second runner-up, she came running into my office. These 3 guys from Masood just started Golden Home Share, and they're creating a platform to match people. And I said, oh my gosh, I gotta find their number. So I tracked them down, and now they have an office in our building, and we don't have to do that. Isn't that great? And we're working with them. I know, we don't have to do it all. Isn't that amazing? It's such a relief. And if you just ask God, He will help. I've been wanting to do fatherhood programming for years. Couldn't find good fatherhood programming, but we've got the single moms, and they've got a 0 on their budget for child support. Then we've got the dads who they're living in their car because they're paying so much in child support, or they don't want to get a real job because they know they've got back child support. So what can we do? Well, I found this woman in Springfield, Jennifer Baker, who has good dads, and she has a whole beautiful program, and they're connected with child support enforcement so that you can get a personal liaison and work it out, and we can try to teach disconnected dads about how to talk to their kids and get their heads not hanging in shame, and get some of the moms maybe willing to trust and give some of them a chance. And so, but we didn't have to do it. I mean, we're partnering, and they're actually paying one of our staff to lead the classes. Now, isn't that amazing? And so it's just, I think if let's go, we have to let go. We didn't have to control that. And they have some space in our office now, too. So I'm just so encouraged by how much we can do if we're just open and we receive people with trust, and trust that God is leading us. So what else am I supposed to say now?
Okay,
Are we out of time? I've already talked too long.
So you're answering a lot of questions that I had, but you know, you were talking about the web of need and then the spiral down.
Oh yeah.
Of either livable wages or transportation or having a place to live, all of those just kind of like somehow when they get tangled up, it really creates that tangible first need that kind of like people cannot think about other things because they got to find a way to just make the day go with either some food or some shelter over their heads. And sometimes it's just like, I mean, one of the things that we get calls and we have limited resources and we say, hey, have you tried Life Columbia? And they say yes, and because we know that you guys have limited resources. So sometimes some of those needs seem to be really kind of like it's about financial and need, but also you're bringing a relationship variable in the picture that is really important. So it's not just about write a check and help. It's really coming alongside people and bring hope that not only for them, but for their children.
Yes.
So
and that's
I know
so,
that
it complicates it too when there are children.
And I know that it wasn't part of the questions that we thought that we would ask, but I'm asking it. What is your wish? And I'm not talking about Woodcrest. I'm talking about faith community in town. What is your wish that the temperature on what areas in the faith community be raised when it comes to really our community needs?
Well, I mean, you've hit on some of the big ones. We're about to finish a 10-plex at the corner of Ash and College that'll have 10 families. We have 3 transitional homes now for a 6-month reset, and those families will need a lot of support. So I would say support to families with children who have become homeless. But really, we have so many different ways to plug in. If you go to our website, lovecolumbia.org, you can see a lot of the different ways. But what we really like to do is if you've got an idea, most people do best what they're really passionate about. I mean, we do tax preparation from February to April. Those accountants and numbers people just sit in there and cackle and have the best time. Who would have thought that? But they love doing that, and they're super excited about it. One guy prepared somebody's taxes, and she mentioned she had a hole in her mobile home. He got a whole group of guys to go out and fix her mobile home's roof. You know, so one thing can lead to another if you just step in and get involved. So there's probably any number. I like to first ask, what do you feel passionate about? And if you communicate that, believe me, we can match it with a need. I mean, we have people that like to help people shop for cars, or just the transportation is a huge need. I mean, we're increasingly seeing daycare is a huge need. The housing, of course. So any of those things to support families, I think you can honestly step in almost anywhere. But
it would not require a kind of like a commitment of 40 hours a week
No.
or anything. Anything that kind of like lighten the burden and help, even if that's helping one person.
And definitely helping one person, and sometimes that's the ripple effect we need. We actually, you know, I loved the fact that we started saying credit building because nobody wanted to do budgeting. For years, I've been feeling like I was nails on a chalkboard talking about budgeting. Well, now we call it credit building a lot of times, and people love credit building. It's exactly the same thing. You learn how to pay your bills on time. And you pay off your debt. But another thing has happened with emergency help. We've struggled through the years, honestly. And some of it is just our own, we're so busy, and then people are busy. But so you have an urgent, immediate need. Usually it's a one-time need. And so how do you have this like minute urgent group ready? And anybody who's here works for VU knows we've called on VU employees to do this a lot through the years. But so we're struggling for that, and it seems like we're having more of those because of the housing crisis. People are getting priced out of their homes, and they're getting eviction notices. And sometimes we they didn't call us in time that we can do something. By the way, we give away about an average of $125,000 a month in benevolence-related stuff. About 35% of that is government funded, the rest of it's private donations. I mean, it's a lot of fundraising, but that's exact. People need sometimes for you to pay a bill so they can get their head above water, so you can have that conversation with them you need to have. And a big chunk of what we do too is we have a get to work fund that VU pays for. It pays for a lot of our car repairs for working people. So I know I was headed somewhere with that. What was the question?
Well, it's good. Again, since it's,
Oh yeah, Love Force One, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Okay, so we rebranded this emergency minute group that we never had a good name for, that nobody ever wanted to sign up for. So one cool thing happened. I don't know, most of you probably heard of Carl Edwards of NASCAR fame. He was just inducted in the Hall of Fame. Well, his wife, Kate, is a doctor, and she got involved a little bit, and we did something with her that was super cool called Dinner with a Doctor. And so some of our families got to have dinner with her, and I had one woman say it was I have a client advisory group, or we do, and I said, what's the best thing that ever happened to you at Love Columbia? And she goes, oh, it was that dinner with the doctor. I never thought I could ever talk to my doctor. I'd never talked to a doctor. I didn't actually really know doctors were real people. And she said, now I can talk to my doctor. Well, so Kate Edwards got involved, but then Carl wanted to get involved. So, but he's really adventurous. I guess he used to flip off the back of race cars and stuff like that. So he said, I just want to do something in the spur of the moment that's adventurous. So we came up with this name, Love Force One. And then we figured out we could get an app. And so there's this group now called Love Force One, and they go on these missions. And a lot of the missions are housing related. People are priced out, or there's some catastrophe. The first one was a woman. We had moved into a housing, and she was disabled. She was disabled and had not really ever, we learned, really unpacked. The dog was a bit of a problem. There were just issues. And then the crisis came that her landlord was going to do an inspection. And so she needed to get this place in tip-top shape because she was getting a pretty good rent, and we certainly didn't want her to get evicted. And so Carl goes over and meets her and discovers she was a project manager before she became disabled. He got her involved. By the next day she came back, she had colored tape on all these different boxes and a whole list of what needed to do. And we had 16 volunteers, and at the end of the day, her house looked amazing. And that was our first mission. But we've since had other missions. We had to move a woman who developed cancer, couldn't pay her rent, has a adult autistic son with autism. And so people went over and packed and helped her move. There's just been other things that have happened, some smaller things, but many of them are related to some kind of a housing crisis. But we've got, last I heard, we have 100 people signed up for Love Force One. I mean, so I don't know how often all of them will be called on, but I know we'll need more. And some are just gentle things that we urgently need to go take something to somebody or help someone through some difficult time. We have one small group that takes warm meals to families staying in hotels. I mean, there's any number of things that sometimes come up pretty urgently you can do if it'll fit into your schedule. And sometimes it's just a matter of rebranding what you're doing and making it clearer and easier for people to find a way to engage. So we're working on that too. How do we work more closely with the community and make it easy for people to give what they want to give? I do want to say that God helps us. We have a joy bell. We ring this joy bell when good things happen. I think every place should have a joy bell. And we hear the bell ringing, and we all know that somebody got housed, somebody got their credit score up, somebody found a job, somebody, experienced some kind of joy that they wanted to come in and share. We had one woman who was in a domestic violence situation, and we helped her relocate to Kansas City and get back in her field she was in. She drove all the way to Columbia to ring that joy bell because that just meant so much to her to celebrate with her community. And we just want that bell to ring more and more and more, just to have more of the celebrations, the joys. I'd really like to see Love Columbia be the country club for the common person. You know, we're having more classes. We have a tenant training class. We're starting a fraud prevention class, something that's available, and we would like to have things going on. We have people that come and knit and crochet and are trying to offer that to somebody else who's never had a grandma that taught them how to knit and crochet. So much of what we work with is people that just never had anyone in their lives to teach them growing up. We stepped into a youth homeless demonstration project with HUD, which has been very difficult in many ways, but we're always trying to see, can we manage to work with this government program? Because it could give us a lot of money to help people in Columbia who are struggling. And it's helping 18 to 24-year-olds who are literally homeless. Well, when we signed on, we didn't realize that half of them were already going to be parents, and that almost all of them had aged out of foster care. So that's a group that has high needs, and what they just really need are more mentors, more people to step into their lives. So, but you can't do it all, and you might just do one. I mean, what the starfish thing, you know, you can't sail all the starfish through the air back into the ocean, but you can pick up one. I love Mother Teresa always said, just find one. And speaking of Mother Teresa, she was, and I've maybe said this before because I say this 100 times, and I hope someone says this about me someday. A reporter who spent a lot of time with her was questioned about her after her death, and they said, how would you sum her up? And he said she was a woman in love. And I think that's really what we're all called to be, isn't it? It's really all about love. Have we learned to love yet? And one of the best ways to learn to love is to forget about yourself and get involved helping someone else and investing in community.
Wow. Is there anything that is left unsaid that you'd like to share? As we're
I didn't really. We do financial coaching, career coaching, housing coaching, payday loan relief, car repairs. I can give you the list, but we do all those things. But really, all those things in some ways are just a way to connect with people who are hurting and people who need to know the love of Jesus. We have a scripture on the chapel wall in our chapel that I was my go-to verse after I lost my sight. Behold, I am making all things new. Remember in the Passion of Christ when Jesus fell in the dirt with the cross on his back in the dust, and Mary came up beside him, and he looked up to her and said, behold, I'm making all things new. It really didn't look like it right then, did it? But that's what was happening. Behold, I'm making all things new. And Woodcrest, I'd like to say to you, behold, I'm making all things new.
Wow. Well, bless you. Bless you. As you were talking, and your passion and your love and your compassion is oozing out every time that we talk. I mean, it's just so evident, Jane, and really grateful and inspiring. I was thinking about the story of Nehemiah. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. Where do I start or what do I do? Yes, the principle of our time, treasure, and talents to put it in play for the sake of furthering the kingdom of God. But also, to really sometimes, I mean, for either this church or any place or individual, start with prayer. Start with prayer and asking the question that what is it that is breaking God's heart? That as a result of it, it's going to break yours. The provision of ways and everything, God would provide the pathway. However, from a passion that is rooted in heart of God, it could be a starting point. What can I do today? What can I do? One thing. If nothing is not an option, what is one thing that I can do? And then you're making one change, one influence at a time. Sometimes, yeah, I know that some of these words can be, it sound like cliche, that sometimes we end up helping someone that we wish we could do it for everyone. But we're at least impacting one life. We want you, so from those aspects, you bring in the variable of prayer and then say, Lord, what is it that you're really impressing on my heart that as a result of it, that it's going to break mine and I'm going to move to action. My hope and desire really not only as for our body here at Woodcrest, but in our community to raise the temperature of compassion. Yeah, compassion that sometimes we can get easily judgmental, yeah, unintentionally to just say, just go clean up and go get the job, yeah, or yeah, hey, you money management. Those are all yeah, part of the process, but yeah, are we approaching the need of our community with compassion and love? So really grateful that you personally, Jane, and then also Love Columbia has exemplified that posture toward our community. And it's well known to our community that at least either it's the first place that I'm going to call or one of those places that I know that I will call when I need help. So for that, we're really grateful for what you do.
Well, and I just want to say you have been a thread through the years here of compassion and your pastoral heart. And didn't you just love his voice? The way he says those things. Didn't you just feel compassion and concern and what breaks God's heart? You care about that. And that has been a consistent thread through the years that has kept different programs going, kept the church going. And I just want to really thank you as well. You are a humble person, and you're not going to be out in front flashing all the signs and all that, but there is just a consistent, humble compassion and love for others. And that's really a hallmark of this place because of you.
Credit goes to Jesus, and that's what we hope that, again, we would be a place that people would know that there's hope. And just, that's why it also makes it really good to partner and link arm with you guys. Well, yeah, I think that it's that time of the service that if you don't have any last word, I can pray, but if you would like to share anything.
He's just so dangerous, giving me another chance to say something else.
I know.
I just want to say maybe one more thing. If there are things that you feel like you've tried and didn't work out, that's okay. I'm going to tell one quick story. We have back to our chapel. Discovery Church was a church that lasted a few years in North Columbia. Max Jennings, formerly at Forum, and some others, Ross Duff, started that church to reach North Columbia. Woodcrest did that once too, remember? To reach North Columbia.
Right.
Well, that's apparently kind of a hard place to reach in some ways, at least the way we were reaching it. And so when that church folded, they gave us $100,000 to help us buy that downtown building. And I put a sign up in the chapel commemorating Discovery Church. And I've told the founders, when you didn't get to see as many people from that 65202 zip code as you wanted, but they're all coming in your chapel every day. So that's 2/3 of our clients are from 65202.
Wow.
So you never know what you're investing in and how it will look. We just have to let's go requires let go.
Amen.
And thank you for trying. Thank you for boldly pioneering. Thank you for the history of this place. And I just want to declare good things over you.
With that note, again, let's pray. Dear God, thank you again that the idea of love just comes from you because this is who you are. Thank you for instilling and starting and cultivating love and compassion in Jane's heart and Love Columbia, God. Father, would you continue show yourself in ways that we can live out our faith by loving you, loving each other, and serving our community. Would you release the financial funds that it needs? Would you release the time and it really kind of like talent that your people have? You said we all are we are your masterpiece, and you have made us wonderfully in ways to do good works for your name's sake, God. So would you let us see it, and would you help us to play it out and make our community a better place that is not to just live, but also be a place of hope for eternity and your son, Jesus. We love you. We give you this time. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.